I'm Christina Eisenhower. I'm a program manager here at Healthy New Albany. I run races, but for those of you who don't know, Healthy New Albany is the nonprofit here in this building. We do the farmers market, the community garden. We do races like the Walking Classic and the Rose Run 5K. We do community programming, including senior connections, integrative programs, lectures, a bunch of stuff. I put a few things in the back. So just some of our programs that we have going through September. We're working on our October through December programs. We should have those out in about a month. And just our next lecture, just as an FYI, we're doing mental wellness matters. There's some other lectures that we do. And so we've got someone coming in to talk about habit building and success. So there's a flyer back there. It's August 25th, which would be that's just a free community lecture, kind of like this one. It was in the email, but just as an FYI, currently Healthy New Albany. So on our part of the building, our COVID policy is that masks are not required if you're fully vaccinated. We are continuing to monitor what that looks like. But yes, when you're using the lobby or if you need to go to the restroom, because it's shared with a medical facility, we ask that you wear a mask. And I will be emailing out a copy of the handouts tonight. So if that's helpful, there's, especially for those who are on Zoom, we'll be emailing a copy of the handouts that you can kind of check out. But we'll also be going through it here in the room. I think that's all of the housekeeping I just wanted to get through. So yeah. I'm going to turn it over to Molly, who is one of our favorite partners here, and she's going to talk about all sorts of exciting stuff. Oh, and on the Zoom, sorry, if you have any questions, just type it in the chat, and I'll try and flag Molly down when it's the appropriate time. Thanks.
All right. Well, that was a wonderful introduction, and I know many of you, some people I don't. I am Molly Linek. Do I need to look at them? I'm going to look at you guys because you're real in here, and I can touch you and probe you.
They're real too.
You're not real. You're only a figment of that screen.
But we love you.
But we love you. I'm glad you are actually here joining us. So I am the registered dietitian. I work for OSU Wexner Medical Center, the Health and Fitness Center specifically. I also am an instructor here too, which gives me a wide range of great opportunities to meet all of you. So I know some of you just from exercise class. I'm wearing a different hat today. I'm a nice person, not the mean person you have in classes, demanding that you go faster, harder, or challenge yourself more. Today, I really am excited about one of the most, I'm going to say evolution and changing our eating habits and our eating routines, and it is intermittent fasting. Today, specifically, I really want to get into the science of it. There's a lot of misnomers, and I think that we all should have an opportunity to understand the science. And if you don't understand all the science of it, you can always write a note. We can talk about it later. I respect everyone in the room, and I never, ever, I want to talk to you like you know, because you do. Because if you wanted it simple, you could get on the internet and look it up. Necessarily accurate, but definitely want to make sure you understand what's happening in the body. Why is this so fascinating? And understand some of the true benefits that have been recorded since. I'm going to talk about some of the history of intermittent fasting. I was listening to a journalist, it was his book on something completely different. And he mentioned how we really need, as speakers, to talk about the history of topics. Because when there's history, you learn so much more, the evolution of something. So I will talk about a little bit of the history. I will define what intermittent fasting is as it stands today, aspects of intermittent fasting on fat metabolism, physiological changes of this type of eating pattern, because that's what it is, it's not a diet, on major body systems. So systems in our body like our heart, our liver, muscles or musculoskeletal system. I want to go over some nuances and some pitfalls. There I'll also be talking about timing and some of the research that has just come more to the forefront. And then I really want to make sure I give you enough time for questions if you have any. Hopefully you will. So historical perspective. What I find fascinating is this has been going on for thousands of years. It's a religious way, Ramadan. It also has been used in medical practices. It can be dated, the first recorded study is 1914. However, Benjamin Franklin, I mean, we know this stuff, but we need to do research to figure it out, right? So he was quoted as saying the best of all medicines is rest and fasting, right? Mark Twain wrote, "A little starvation can really do more for the average sick man than can the best medicines and the best doctors." I don't mean a restricted diet. I mean total abstinence from food for 1 or 2 days. So this has been going on a long time, although we have now been Google-fied and everybody seems like it's a new thing. It isn't. And the beauty of this is there's so much solid data that it works. And it's been shown and researched over and over. So what is intermittent fasting? Or as I'm going to, in some of these slides, it'll be IF. It's a variety of eating patterns where no or few calories are consumed for time periods that can range anywhere from 12 plus hours to days, okay? On several days or recurring basis, or even it can be quarterly, monthly, yearly. So there's a lot of different ways of doing this. You want to look at the research to see what modality is best suited for you. Because we know what it is, but how do you do it and what's best? First, I want to talk about what this is, okay? What's happening? So some science behind this. We eat a normal diet, right? We eat all the food, pretty much, not all of it, but mostly the carbohydrate, but everything is turning into eventually glucose. And that's our primary energy source for the body. Well, in order for our body to bring glucose into the cells where we can use it as energy, we need something to be secreted called insulin. Easy enough, we've all heard it. Well, when insulin, which is a hormone, is released, it's great. It pulls that sugar into the cells where our cells then can put it into this TCA cycle and do all these magical things in the mitochondria and produce energy. But what it does also, among other things, but it shuts down your ability to tap into fat. And it also shuts down your ability to pull glucose or sugar or glycogen, we're just going to call it sugar, from the liver, where we have an abundance, and from the muscles, where we also have it, because it shuts it down, okay? So if you're packing something, sugar, you want to use that first and you're not going to unpack the stuff you've already packed, right? Do you understand that? Because that's key. So insulin is released. It shuts down fat from being utilized or pulling it out of your body to use as an energy source, and thereby allowing our body to use the sugar it just pulled in. But with prolonged fasting, this is one of the powerful effects of it. Energy changes from the stored sugar or the sugar that we're bringing in from our diet to fat or ketones, which is what it is eventually made into. So we allow our body to pull out the fat and use it as an energy source. Does that make sense during this prolonged fasting? Now, what are ketones? Ketones are formed when the body breaks down adipose tissue or true fat and we use it for an energy source. What I find fascinating is ketones do so much more than just that. It has a cascade effect on our bodies, from sparing, meaning holding on or not allowing muscle breakdown, lean tissue, to a lot more things, but I'll tell you in a few minutes. But I find it fascinating. But what the really big result of intermittent fasting, and it can be summed up in this, is that there's changes in hormonal patterns and energy metabolism in the body. That's it. That is it in a nutshell. Questions? Hi. So we hear about intermittent fasting and, oh my gosh, isn't that thing you got to do for 18 hours and then you're like not supposed to do this and that? No, there's all different types, and not one is better than the other. It just is what is right for you individually, not the person on the website, but very specific for you and what you want to accomplish. So these are the ones that have been most studied. Okay, it doesn't mean it's the only ones, but the ones that have been most studied and documented. Time-restricted feeding, which are patterns that we are restricting food intake for a certain time throughout the day. I'm gonna get much more in detail on all of this. So when people will say, isn't that the thing that you're supposed to go 18 hours or 16 hours without food? Well, that's what that is. That's time restricted. No, you can go at different times, but we'll talk about it. Alternate day fasting. That means you go from, it's usually a 5 and a 2, 5 days of regular eating, 2 days of fasting. You can intermix that any way you want, but that's what the research has used as a study point. So you could go 2 days of regular eating, and then 1 day of a 24-hour fast, and then eat 2 more days and fast again, okay? Do you understand that pattern? And that's not limiting you, that's just what has been studied. There's also alternate day modified fasting. This one is when you go about 20 hours, it will vary depending on you personally, but about 20 hours, and you add in about 25% of what you would need in a day. So typically I would have my patients anywhere between 300 and maybe 600 calories, and it's a meal. And it's a combination of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. For some people, I get very specific because what we are feeding ourselves during that time will also affect the results of the intermittent fasting, okay? So that can get very specific. And then the periodic fasting, I have seen studies on up to 21 days of fasting and the calories that are being taken in. And this is with morbid obese individuals. The studies have been done on, and it's about 250 calories coming in, the benefits and what's going on. So there's a lot of variation to this model.
That's done, I'm sorry, that's done under medical supervision.
Typically. Well, I would hope so. Or a study, yeah, that's usually what it is. Yes, and if you didn't hear what was said, that is typically done, and it should. Let's just put it that way. It should always be done on medical supervision because you want to balance out electrolytes, your macronutrients. That's not something you just go out and try. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Please don't ever do that. But I want to tell, now that I kind of explained it, I want to show you some of these differentials. Okay, so on the very, does this have a pointer? Because I'm not good with this stuff.
I think so.
Because I really want to point at things.
It's a big button.
It's like I'm playing with a cat. All right, you'll notice here, this is a typical American diet. This is 48 hours. Each line, these red lines, indicate when the person ate a meal. Over here has high glucose in the bloodstream, low glucose, high ketone level, low ketone level. as I had just mentioned before, sorry. So sorry. As I just mentioned before, ketones are a measure of fat being used as an energy source. Does that make sense? Okay, it's important to understand that. And for anyone that knows people who are diabetic and you've heard of ketoacidosis, it is not the same thing. That is very dangerous. It is not the same thing at all. This is different. These are ketones being used in the body as an energy source. Okay, so you'll notice in a typical American diet, their glucose goes up on the first meal and then it goes down. Why? Because we secrete insulin. And then maybe it'll plateau low, so we eat again, and then maybe we have a nighttime snack and it goes on. Well, during that time, you'll notice that we never actually flip the metabolic switch of increasing our fat burning or ketone or activating or pulling out fat as an energy source. We may be using fat as an energy source that's in the food, but we're not using it as fat in our body, okay? Stored fat, yes. Well, fat, we actually store it pretty quick after we eat it, but it doesn't actually store in a way that you're thinking. It stores in order to be readily available. So I'm talking about long-term stored, like fat you can see. How about that? Okay, visceral as well as the stuff that's around your organs, as well as the stuff that is subcutaneous that's sitting on your outside of your body, or I mean on your skeletal system. So here we have a 5 and 2. Remember that one? That's 5 days of eating, 2 days of fasting, or any way you want. This one happens to be 24 hours. This shows that its glucose is not coming in, and you'll notice it never comes in until the 24-hour mark. But you'll notice the ketone level, or the energy that's being utilized in the body, is going up substantially from fat. Fat is being used or broken down as an energy source. That is a really big deal, and that's a huge spike. Here we have that proverbial 18 hours of fasting. You don't have to do 18 hours, but this is an example. And by the way, this came from a study. It was actually a meta-analysis of about 20-some studies. Looking back at them, we pulled them all out, and meta-analysis is that you look at them all, you go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then they spit out all the data for us to kind of make it easy for us to look. And this is what has come up. All right, so then flipping the switch. So let's say you don't eat for 18 hours. When you eat, your glucose goes up. Here, yeah, you're not going to use ketones right away, but then it'll start to elevate. When you eat, it drops back down. You go back into a glucose burning or sugar burning modality. Why is that important? Because our bodies need to be metabolically flexible. Okay, now you may think, what is that? That means we have to train our bodies to utilize fat as an energy source, and then get right back into using sugar as an energy source. And when I say sugar, I mean blood sugar, the food that we're coming into, because that actually is extremely healthy, and the benefits of it is something I will be talking about in a few minutes. But that flexibility is the difference between storing a lot of extra fat because our body doesn't know how to pull it out. It's the difference between having insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. So it's important that we are able to get metabolically flexible, being able to utilize those fat stores. Now you'll notice with the 18 hours, it doesn't spike like this, but look, it's recurring in a pattern over and over. So you start to become metabolically flexible. You use 2 different energy sources readily available to you. All right, did that make sense to everyone? Okay, So what's happening? So really what's happening is the energy utilization shifts. Okay, so we stop always using glucose. Don't worry about the gluconeoglycogen lysis, but you know what? No, I'm not going to skip it. I will tell you. When we have that glucose that's stored in our liver, because we have about, it depends on how big you are and what you do, anywhere from 400 to 800 calories. That makes sense, right? We have all that stored up in our liver, so we can pull it out when we need it. We also have it stored in our muscles, so we can use it right away. Well, this just means that it actually stops pulling out from our liver glycogen, or that stored stuff, and stops it. Meanwhile, we are stopping storing the fat. We stop it, we halt it, no more storing of fat. We're not putting it in, packing it away. Instead, we shift to using those fats as an energy source. And best of all, preferentially, the research on ketones for neurodegenerative diseases, from neurodegenerative diseases to athletic performance to, a lot of things. Ketones are being shown to be an extremely preferred energy for the brain. So much so that it actually calms the brain down. It stabilizes it. And it was shown in a study recently of normal 30 to 40-year-olds given different types of diets that actually showed the brain waves, okay? And when they were given glucose or a regular diet, it breaks down into sugar, the brain waves of that group was like all over the place. They compared it, of course, to a group given ketones, because you can actually take ketones as a supplement. It's not what I would recommend. You want to be using your own body source of them, but unless you have a disease. But they gave them ketones, and they measured those brain waves. And then they also had someone coming off at a nighttime fast. Guess what? The intermittent fasting had almost the same effect as giving them ketones orally by calming down the brain waves. So it's a stabilizing effect of our brain than anything we've ever seen. So in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, it is therapeutic approach is to actually give ketones as an energy source. You can still have glucose, sugar, food, but giving that even with food has created a whole new pathway of energy, calming down the brain. So ketones are used in uncontrolled seizures, okay, especially for kids. It's a very high fat diet. They produce ketones from the fat, and this allows their seizures to stop. And that's how it's managed. That's the power of what I'm talking about here. So, rats. Okay, so the metabolic switch, what is happening? So when we go 12 to 36 hours of not eating anything, let me tell you something. There are some variables here. So depending on what the end result is going to be will depend on how much glucose or stored stuff you got in your liver, okay? So basically, what was your last meal prior to going into your fast? How much sugar, glucose stuff did you pack away? That'll determine how quickly you get those ketones out. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So how much do I have stored in there, as well as the amount of the energy that's expended during the fasting period. It doesn't have to be exercise. It can be normal metabolism of moving, walking, talking, etc. Not laying supine in a bed, but actually doing something will actually increase how much fat you're using and will get you into using fat a lot quicker. So, So I talked about this already. I think we all understand it, but we really want to understand that it's the breakdown of fat in the body. Simultaneously, other cells in our body, not just the liver, are creating ketones. The brain is also doing some amazing things. In here, when we are able to use fatty acids or free fatty acids or ketones as an energy source, we also have mitochondrial biogenesis, which means we are making more mitochondria. Is that significant to anyone? Let me stop and think about it. In Alzheimer's, what is happening? Mitochondria. Mitochondria aren't functioning well. Mitochondria are where the energy output happens. So if I am able to make mitochondria in the brain, hello, that's huge. That's huge. So this is a graph that I use because I like it. It's pretty and it has everything on it. But what this is 2017 accumulation of data, which now has improved more. Those stars that you see up here are actually been proven. In 2017, it was, well, some of those studies said it was, and some of those studies said it wasn't, so we got to put a star there. Otherwise, all of this impact has been proven. Pretty substantial. I'm going to go through all of this. Well, no, I won't. That's a lie. But I will go through most of it as it relates to our body. Okay. So do you want me to just leave that up there for just a second? Okay. You should have that there. But, and I wrote some more notes on my sheet of paper because like I said, I don't know if everyone had heard, but I'd gone home just to kind of go through my notes, and I did the horrible thing. I got onto PubMed and I just found like 2021 recent studies, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to read these. So I wrote notes of some of the stuff, and it's really fascinating for a geek like me. So the first thing I want to talk about is the blood. Okay. I told you guys that ketones in themselves are not just for energy. They do so much more. They produce a cascade effect to other things in the body. And I just want to make sure I have it accurate. So ketones affects and stimulates and regulates gene expression. Okay? What do I mean by that? That means turning on or turning off gene expression. It can be epigenetics. It could be something that could be a poor gene that you don't want to be turned on, and some genes that actually you do want turned on. So it has this cascade, and it's a whole process that I won't want to bore you with, which I can't even explain because it's too complicated. But it allows our bodies to suppress or turn on genes. It also stimulates, and I kind of mentioned this, neurotrophic factor fibroblasts, which is essentially creating better things in the brain, okay? The next thing it does is, and this is where I'm going to say the words, I do not expect you to know them, but I think it's important and only respectful for me to say it. It turns off mTOR. Okay, if you've ever heard of mTOR. Lori, you and I are like, what the heck? I'm like, okay, mTOR always messes me up because there's all these processes in it. But essentially, what do you care about? You care that it is decreasing mTOR, which is basically saving lean tissue mass. That means your muscles. okay? So most people think, well, if I don't eat, aren't I gonna break down muscle? No. Ketones right up there. That, you hear my little noise too? That was kind of cool. It made a noise that made that thing go around. Ketones prevent the breakdown of lean muscle tissue or protein or muscle. Muscle. That is big. So all the times that people said, oh, but it's going to affect your muscle mass. No, this actually prevents it right there. So I think there's two other things. One of them is NAD+. It is a chemical that's in our body that is one of the limiting factors that end up creating aging, okay? When we have less NAD+, you age quicker. That make sense? Okay, so if you have less NAD+, you age quicker because the cells die quicker. This actually stimulates more NAD from the ketones. All right, reduced glucose, insulin, and leptin levels. Glucose, we don't want a whole bunch of glucose flying around in our system. We already know somebody that's diabetic that has glucose just floating around, it hurts peripheral little tiny cells. You guys have heard of blindness, you've heard of losing toes, right? Well, I always think of glucose, when it's around for a while, it becomes the big bully on the playground. And it always picks on the little guys. That's why it attacks the little tiny vessels, like our eyes, like our toes, etc. So, do we want a lot of sugar floating around in the system? No. Do we want a lot of insulin floating around the system? No, because what does insulin do? It shuts down fat from being utilized. I'm gonna have you guys, there's a quiz after this, I'm telling you guys. Is this confusing anyone? I do not wanna do that. Honest to goodness. Okay, it is confusing or not confusing? Okay, good. I just wanna make sure, because I don't think it is, but I wanna make sure everyone feels comfortable. Now, leptin. Leptin is a hormone that is literally secreted from our fat tissue. What you would think is that leptin, the more fat you have, the more leptin is produced, telling your brain, stop eating. I've got enough, stop. However, it doesn't work like that right now. When there is too much leptin happening in the body, it's like it shuts down or becomes resistant to hearing it. It's kind of like that person that goes, wah, 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 wah. And you're like, I don't even hear him anymore. I'm just like, you tune them out until they clap or yell, right? Then they get your attention. So leptin in high doses becomes insignificant. The problem with leptin, though, there's also a cascade effect of other processes in the body that aren't what you want. So too much leptin is shutting down other things. So we want to decrease in leptin when it's at levels that are so high that we no longer even pay attention to it. Okay? Now, this is elevated adiponectin, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, but it actually comes from fat stores. Well, you know, I'll just do it now. It is it's a protein that's secreted from fat itself that essentially protects cell linings. So as an example, let's just use it this way. People with high or elevated adiponectin levels have a decreased risk for cardiovascular disease, okay? Because it protects the linings of the cell. People that don't have it, which are usually in obese or morbid obese, actually don't have as much, believe it or not, and they are at a higher risk. Now, some other things that are happening. The inflammatory cytokines. So we have this rush of our immune system increasing inflammation. We also have reduced oxidative stress. So these markers in the bloodstream shows this reduction. You guys have you know, there's R factor, there's C-reactive protein. There's all these things that we can measure in the blood. What that's showing is these are decreasing simply by not eating. It's pretty impactful. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna flip just real quick and then I'll flip back. So this one is the muscle skeletal. That's going to be right down in here. I also included in that list the intestines, and I think that is it. So let's go here where I wrote it out. So we have physiological impacts. So just on our muscles, what effect does this fasting or intermittent fasting have? What does it do? Who cares? I'm just not eating. Well, no, that's not true, because it's all about the hormones, because I told you, in essence, it's all about the hormones. So what it's doing is that it's enhancing insulin sensitivity. Who cares? Well, you should, because here's what it means. I already said that insulin is secreted to pick up glucose, right? So I hate standing in front of, so I have to do this right here. So here you have the glucose hanging out, and then let's say you had one glucose, and because you're not really sensitive, you got to throw out 2 insulins to grab onto that guy and take him into the cell. It's not very sensitive, right? Let's pretend it's a 1-to-1, 1-to-1. You still have a little bit of insulin floating around. Insulin shuts down fat from being utilized. Insulin will not let fat come out of the fat stores, okay? Important. Now, if my insulin, my cells are very, very sensitive, guess what? I probably only have to send out half of a guy. So I'm gonna cut myself in half, and that half of me can grab onto that glucose and take it into the cell. Why is that important? Because now you don't have to secrete as much insulin, which means you can get right into your fat stores, blah, blah, blah. It's awesome, right? A lot sooner than you would if you weren't sensitive to it. Now, in addition to that, just what I told you, 80% of what you eat immediately after working out will go into muscles, because the muscles are so sensitive to insulin and sugar or glucose that it'll pull it right in, which is a great place for it to go, right at the muscles. Now, in addition to that, it decreases inflammation in the muscle skeletal system. That means all those aches and pains in our joints, decreasing it. Enhanced endurance and efficiency. They have studied athletes over and over again. The hours right before the person is going to eat, they have which I couldn't believe. I was like, this has to be wrong. But they had the best timed results. I mean, they were better. They were better right before, because they're working on ketones, and they have already all of these improvements happening. So they're probably at their very best, and they've been fasting. Now, I can't tell you what the fasting number was. I'd have to go back and look at, the hours, but that's impressive. So we have to find out if the Olympics is doing intermittent fasting, huh? I don't know. All right. Changes in gene expression in the muscles. I already told you about that, but here's what's kind of interesting, and we should all take note of this, is that what happens, it prevents the loss of muscle mass that occurs normally in aging by 40%. Hello. Have you guys did y'all listen to that one? We all lose muscle, period. We're all going to lose muscle because we can't get enough growth factor because we're just not that age anymore. I mean, I pretend, but I'm not. So how do we make sure that we're not losing a ton of muscle mass? Well, these hormones that are happening in the muscle cells itself, and I already told you, the ketones are preventing the loss of muscle mass or loss of muscles as they break down. I got so excited. You guys are like, yeah, that sounds cool. Your muscles or your metabolism, that's what keeps you healthy. Okay, increased activity 2 to 3 hours prior. This is what I told you about the agility and performance of athletes. Promote mitochondrial biogenesis, making of new genes. I want to talk about autophagy, or cleaning up of cell byproducts, and then cellular stress resistance seems to be activated. Once again, that is a hormonal change. That's a cascade effect that once you get into the stuff, you are stimulating the cell to be more resistant to a lot of stress. Okay? Why do you care? Because if you can keep that cell healthy, then it's not going to die. If it doesn't die, then you aren't aging as quickly. If a cell becomes unhealthy, your body naturally fights it and gets rid of it. It's a beautiful thing until it's not. And it's called inflammation that has now created a lot of inflammation in the body. So why do you care? You do not want those cells dying. That's aging. Now, normal turnover of cells is different. So I want to go back to this autophagy. Anyone ever hear of it? Don't raise your hand, Lauren. You're not allowed to. Okay, yeah, autophagy. It's autophagy, autophagy, however you want to pronounce it. But the best analogy, I like it at least, I don't care, I like this, is this. If I gave you 10 minutes to clean a bathroom, Christina, what would you clean?
The toilet.
The toilet. Okay. That would be 1 week. Every week you get 10 minutes. What would happen to the crevices, the sink, the hair that is accumulating over there and into the tub and the soap scum? What would happen?
It accumulates.
It accumulates, right? Obviously, I said it. What if I gave you an hour to clean the bathroom once a week?
Clean all of it.
Dang, yeah, she cleaned it all. So imagine giving your cells, that much time to clean itself out. 10 minutes, you clean a toilet. Meanwhile, you got all that crud building up. You give yourself an hour, your body, or you're going to take it and clean it all. You're not going to let that hair grow, because by the time that hair grows, it sticks. And when it sticks, now you're going to have to scrub it and then repaint it, right? Think of that analogy in your cell. If we can automatically get in there, clean out the body by simply resting our body, we are that much further along in preventing aging. I've seen this as called on Google, that it's the anti-aging diet. Well, first of all, we know it's not a diet, but it is anti-aging if you really think about it, because it reduces inflammation. So what happens to all of those extracellular products? Well, that cellular waste eventually comes down into the gut, where our gut bacteria has a party. It takes it and eats it and loves it and creates some amazing things. Thanks for laughing. Everyone else is like, gosh, she's weird. It doesn't matter. But it has literally a party. It is absolutely amazing now what the gut does with it. It creates the short chain fatty acids, these things that then reduce inflammation even more. It creates this abundance of serotonin and GABA and all these neurotransmitters that go right to the brain. Hello, those are feel-good hormones. Why do I care? Because we're having mental health issues today in the biggest we've ever seen. Why do I care? Because we could do it by cleaning the cells, by changing this right here. We can do all of this by intermittent fasting. Okay? So our heyday down in the gut, using that cellular waste, 2017 Nobel Prize winner realized that autophagy, or this cleaning out of cells, actually increases substantially during the fasted state. So you are able to do it a lot more efficiently. It's like putting the kids to bed and not having them bother you while you're in the bathroom cleaning it. Imagine half an hour now. You got another half an hour. All right. I see that the time is slipping away. So I've gone through this. In the blood, we already know that it produces ketones, which has a ripple effect on all systems. We also know that it decreases glucose, decreases insulin, decreases inflammatory markers, leptin and insulin, leptin. In our cardiovascular system alone, it decreases or reduces blood pressure, resting heart rate, parasympathetic tone, and reducing potential stress. It increases our stress resistance. So what it's doing here is, once again, a hormonal cascade creating such a huge impact on our circulatory system or our cardiovascular system. Of course, we already know that we are breaking down fat, which is a very big deal because we also know that fat creates inflammation in the body. It releases a pro-inflammatory hormone, meaning it increases our inflammation. All right, so here are some nuances. It is very important to fluctuate days and times to keep us metabolically flexible. It also is very important, and you will see a lot more studies in science and talking about this, but I will be the first, hopefully, to whisper in your ear, so mark it down, that it is based on circadian rhythm. And what do I mean? Eating based on the light outside. There is an abundance of research that is showing how our hormones change in the morning compared to what happens at the nighttime. How much insulin we secrete. Maybe we typically don't secrete as much insulin in the daytime, not because of our exercise, not because of what we're doing, but literally because of the light. It changes our gut bacteria, circadian rhythm. So when we try to fight against our circadian rhythm, we are fighting not a losing battle, but it does become very tumultuous. Now, what is a circadian rhythm? Not everyone is the same. Some people are on fire at night. So you have to honor your body, which means you listen to your body. More is not always better. There's been many studies showing that it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, here in America, if I can get a supersize, then I'm gonna supersize it, right? No, we don't have to do that. What we have to do is find out what works best for us and try not to supersize it. If you wanna stretch it and extend it and, play around a little bit with it, yeah, try it, but do it smart. Talk to a professional to help you. Lot of nuances in here, like electrolyte imbalances if you're not careful. So it can affect sleep because, again, circadian rhythm. Everyone has heard of melatonin. Yes, melatonin is what's secreted. We don't want to mess with that, but this can affect sleep if it's prolonged, meaning a long time. And actually the study these things I was looking up, 2021, was showing that 9 months of fasting had nothing better. It didn't do anything better and actually created some bone loss in the hips compared to a group that fasted for 4 months, same time period, like same hours, right? Both groups, just comparing. Here's what it is. So you don't want to overdo. You want to flex in and out and keep yourself flexible in the metabolic realm, okay? It's not about here, I'm only going to eat 3 hours for the rest of my life. Okay. Hormones, like I said, it can affect how hormones. But by the way, when I say women, men, you also have a monthly flow. You just don't know it. Ha ha, that was a joke. All right, but not really. So progesterone and hormonal balance for women. Looking around if this is even essential. Should I skip it? Probably should. All right, never mind. We'll look at that another day. I thought I was really. I know, but she doesn't count.
I read it.
She took 5 minutes.
She can talk to her individually.
I am all right. Hey, I'm including myself. So, okay, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. All right. So let us get on to. Oh yeah, here. Intermittent fasting creates a cascade of physiological benefits, but needs to be approached specifically for you. That is extremely, extremely important, and that's me. That's not me, but that over there is me. You guys are so sweet that you laugh at the words. All right, questions, comments, concerns.
Give us an example, and I know I'm doing some of it, but I have a lot of questions. But when you're fasting, that you can still take influence. Can you take lemon in your tea or lemon in your water?
Yeah.
You can't take cream or any of those. Can you take any kind of sugar that's not?
No.
Fake
Great
sugar?
question. I love it.
Repeat it.
So what?
Repeat the question.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. So, hey, you know, I have teenagers, and I know for a fact that the camera should be up here and facing down because I actually look better that way. So I don't know why it's looking at me like this.
Because all these people couldn't be able to see if the camera was up here.
I'm being funny. You ever see the kids? They're up like this.
Yeah.
You know, so it's always up here.
You look good no matter what.
Oh, whatever. But her question was, what can I eat, drink, consume during the fasted state? I'm going to preface this, and I'm sorry I'm going to do this, but it depends on what you want. Okay, when I say that, always water. Those fasts that it's like, it's a non-water fast, so literally you're taking in absolutely nothing for days. It is, I am so against them just on the sheer fact that the body can't function that way, but it's, so I always water, always water. There are some controversy out there, but remember, it's what you want to accomplish in the fasted state. You can have coffee. Some people say you can't because it stimulates some stuff going on in the gut. Well, if coffee has polyphenols in them or flavonoids, okay, or this really great thing that actually increases your body's ability to clean itself out, right? So coffee, green tea would actually help that to happen, the cleaning out. But sometimes people are like, well, that's not really true fasting. Well, yeah, it's true fasting because it's true for me and it works for me. So do you do lemon? You can. And then when you get used to water without lemon, try that. Can you have sweetened things? Absolutely not. Not even unsweetened. I mean, sugar, calorie, because that actually stimulates brain changes. So no, but water, coffee, tea. Now,
Do you mean black coffee?
black coffee, of course, no cream in your
Okay.
coffee. But this is a standard. There are variations to everything.
So earlier you said green tea, and now you're saying tea. So do you mean any flavor of
sorry.
tea? Okay.
Any
With
kind of tea.
Anything, without no sugar or anything. Okay.
Nothing in it except the tea. Yeah.
Okay.
Tea, you got to remember what your end result is and how long you've been doing it. Some people can just drink water all day long and they're amazing at it. I can't, but I also know why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for weight loss. There's been lots of research on men that they're only doing it specifically for a certain effect. And what they're doing is not trying to lose weight, but trying to have these other effects. And they're eating up the same amount of calories in a 5-hour window early in the day, because timing does matter in some people, and others it shows different things. But they didn't lose any weight, but what they did is they changed their body health-wise. So it really is about what you want to accomplish. So black coffee, if it works, black tea, it works, and it helps, and it actually can increase polyphenols.
How does stress impact ketones and all of these other hormones?
Cortisol, you mean?
Well, stress is to me, stress is my language. Is that cortisol to you? 'Cause
Well,
cortisol isn't in my.
Yeah. So stress, meaning external stress. Yeah. So, oh wait, can I just mention one more thing before you go? I wanted to mention some of the topics that have been studied tremendously and has shown. Cancer has been studied extensively with intermittent fasting, and it shows tumor regression. There's two hormones that are actually increased substantially that decrease tumors proliferating, growing, and also from that gene expression that I talked about. So decreasing cancer risk and cancer growth. It has been studied extensively. Fatty liver disease, extensive. Of course, then the typicals, diabetes and heart disease. Thanks.
So I had a question on the Zoom. So the question is, if I'm fasting, should I plan my workouts and exercise around when I will break the fast? Because she's always heard I need protein after weight training. So what do I do with fasting?
It's a great question. So first you have to make sure that you are, with my clients, I make sure they start off with small windows. So maybe 12 and a half hours. See how that works. And if you're not comfortable with working out on an empty stomach, don't do it. Now, that's number one. Gradually, I really encourage exercising while you're fasting. If the result, because I showed you what happens in athletes, I showed you that ketones actually prevent breakdown of muscles, right? So that's one thing. It's not going to necessarily deteriorate the body, but you may not feel comfortable, meaning you're not comfortable because you think you wouldn't be able to survive. But trust me, look at yourselves. We would survive. We have fat. I have fat. You have fat. It is an energy source. It's a powerhouse. It comes from, this is who we are, we're able. But you don't want to just start to exercise right away, fasting, because you want to train your body, I said this already, to be able to tap into fat as an energy source before you just go out there and start fasting for 16 hours. It's very difficult. So working up to the time is best. Try to work around right now in the beginning your exercise because of the uncomfortableness of it. I discuss this a lot with my clients about how to do it, but most importantly is going to be drinking fluids to keep your electrolytes and yourself hydrated. Okay, I could go on that little spiel, but I won't. So I hope that answered your question. In the beginning, pattern it so that you feel comfortable. Then maybe you start to inch away from that time. One more thing. I always describe it to my clients as having a fire and taking lighter fluid and putting it on top of the fire, you are just exponentially burning those ketones or activating fat as an energy source, and anything that you had in the liver, or I keep pointing to the wrong side, or the muscles, it's going to be really heightened or taken up and used. Questions?
One kind of goes back to the coffee thing again, because I read a million places that you can still have some cream in your coffee and not break your fat. And then the second question is, do you believe that a keto diet is good or bad?
Okay, number one.
Repeat the question.
Yes, oh, thank you. The question was, she has read in numerous sources that having cream in your coffee does not break your fast. The second question was, in my opinion, do I think keto diets are good? So number one, anything that has to be digested breaks your fast. And when I say that, wait, I only mean you break your digestive tract fast. You stop autophagy. You stop the cleaning out of cells, okay? You also have now cream in the body to use as an energy source. Does that make sense? So you're going to stop right away. If I could pull that back up, you are going to stop using ketones. Shuts it down. Why would I? I have got stuff in the system already. Now, there is a type of fat that actually doesn't do that, but that's for another day. Ketone diets, I think ketone or ketogenic diets are fabulous. What I am very sad about is how it's been butchered, with people eating tons and tons of extremely unhealthy foods and calling that healthy. Because what you put in your body after you have fasted determines that health of the cell. Some studies that were showing that what you put in your body after that you break your fast can counteract all the benefits you just did that quickly. So imagine all the nitrates and nitrites that are in bacon if you don't buy. I'm using that as an example, but now all of a sudden, oxidative stress or damage to our cells, way up there, right? We all know saccharin is bad for us because why? It causes cancer. Well, why? Because it has oxidative stress. It causes, so you know what I mean? You got to think about what you want to do. Keto, I've done keto many times. I fluctuate in and out. It's extremely important to fluctuate in and out. You should never stay in it for a long period of time unless it is medically necessary.
How does a layperson know what's
You don't. You come see me. You don't. You come see me.
I know.
There you go.
So another question was, does time spent sleeping count towards a fast?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sleeping, definitely fasting.
So if you want to fast for 12 or 16 hours of a day, you can be sleeping for 8 of that.
That's what most of us do. We stop eating at a certain time and we sleep, and we're just using up that energy, right? Yeah, definitely.
So you go get a bath, 6 o'clock, and then you go to bed at 8.
Yeah. If I'm just asleep for 12 hours, I can fast for 12 hours.
Totally. You can do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you can. I have.
Other questions?
That's exactly what she said.
Okay, 3 or 4 types of fasting you talked about, is one likely proven to be better, or are they all about the same?
It depends on what you want to accomplish.
So sorry, the question was, of the different types of fasting said at the beginning, is one medically better than another?
Right. So medically better than the other. So let me answer it in 2 ways. It depends on what you want to accomplish. So for obesity, day fasting, like 24 hours, it shows some really good results. So it would be like that 5 and 2, but you can intermix it however you want. And then I think a 24-hour fast every quarter or maybe every month helps to really reset the body. I am using my professional opinion on that and giving you what I think based on what I've read. It allows your body to kind of clean itself out for a 24-hour period, and then you eat. It's kind of like, you guys know LIFO, FIFO, first in, first out. And so you're thinking last in, first out. So you're going to get rid of a lot of that stuff, really activate and allow this these hormones to start to reestablish themselves and the gut bacteria to get healthy again, because the gut bacteria actually really flourish. So depends on what your what you want to accomplish. I fast every single day. The hours vary depending on what I need and what I'm doing. I wish I could do 24 hours. I'm just not, I don't have it in me. I've done 20 hours. I can't do it. I'm such a wimp. I like food. But I'm really active. So, and then it's just different. So does that answer your question? So if you ask me what you want it to do, then I would tell you, but I like everyday fasting too. Questions?
You talked about cycling in and out of different types of diets. How long do you cycle out before you cycle back in?
Okay, so the question is, I talked about cycling, either like the ketogenic diet, cycling in and out, or even the intermittent fasting, cycling in and out. So I've been I experiment on myself, and then I make my friends be my guinea pigs. And then once it works, and I'm like, cool, now I know what to tweak because it didn't work, then I start to let other people try it out. So what I like to do is a 14-day keto. I no longer need that because I can get into keto because I've become very flexible. So my body can get into ketogenic where I can test it on a urine, a urine stick, and I can get in it really quickly because I've trained my body to do it. And that's pretty cool. And I've watched it happen because like I said, I experiment on myself. But I will cycle maybe 14 days. I haven't done that in a while. I'll do 7 days. And then when I do come out of keto, by the way, I'm eating a plethora of greens. I never drop my carbs below 40. I think going low, 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 I just won't do it. Because I think the greens are really important. So cycling means what affects you. The other thing, if I were a woman menstruating, it's important to flex in and out right around your cycle because you need those extra carbs in order to produce what we need to produce in the hormones. So, there's a 25% increase in the demand of carbohydrates alone just to produce those hormones when we're menstruating. So cycling is important, cycling in those times. And then also, once you get flexible, so you're in and out of keto pretty quickly. And I always say, test it, don't guess, okay? Do I smell like ketones? No. Test it with a urine stick, right? Then you become flexible. And then with intermittent fasting, days I'll stretch it. I'll just flex my muscle, not literally flex, but I'll flex that muscle of resistance, and I will, go a little bit longer because I have these weird words in my head that I tell myself, like, it's just leptin or it's just ghrelin. It's just a hormone telling me I'm hungry. Am I sick? Am I dizzy? Am I gonna die? No, it's a hormone telling me I'm hungry. I can handle this. I got this, right? So I'm flexing a little bit of muscle. And I like it because it feels like, wow, I am stronger than a silly craving or a stimulation in a hormone. And that's kind of cool because then you become more resilient. So flexing is what is best for you. Does that cycling make sense? Yeah. Questions?
Question. You mentioned towards the end something about if you went more than, when they did something for 9 months, it resulted in bone loss. But if they did it for 4 months, it didn't. So what specifically were you talking about that they did for 9 months?
There's been somebody on my phone this whole time. I have no idea who it was.
We like called you and you.
Yeah, I didn't know it, but whatever.
They're very
I don't know
educated
who it
now.
was. I'm grabbing that study because I pulled it up and I put it down.
Hopefully it's not one of those $9 a minute.
And the question was about the study where they did it for 9 months or 4 months and the differences there.
Yeah. So they compared is this it? Instead of just doing out, so what they did, they intermittent fasted for 4 months. Okay.
Was it a specific type?
Which one?
Yeah, not like.
I got it. I know what you meant.
hours.
It was a very extreme one.
Okay.
It was very, very extreme. And I will get that information to you. So I'm not sitting here flipping my phone looking. But what it showed, they did, let's say it was 20 hours. It was extended. And they did it for, and it may have been longer. It may have been like an alternating or modified fast. So they had like 600 calories or so every day. I can't exactly remember specifically, but 4 months, the end result showed all the same benefits of both groups going 9 months to 4 months, but in the 9 months, holding that long-term fasting restricting ended up in some demineralization of the hips.
Lord knows I don't need that.
Yeah.
However, it was an extreme, and I'm going to find it, and I will.
do that anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you anyway. I will send it to you. I have your contact info. I know where you live.
I know where you live.
But that's extreme.
With the more, you've mentioned though that you fast like every day. So with more moderate, I guess like moderate intermittent fasting, is it like that should be a lifestyle or it's still cycle in and out of it?
You know, it can be a lifestyle. I believe though, to still cycle in and out. So maybe, you know, you do it for 2 months. Let's say you're just really rocking and rolling and you're hitting like 18 hours and you feel fabulous. That's great. That is amazing. I do think that when there's a special occasion or, you know, there's a telltale sign when you start not being able to fall asleep because your melatonin isn't being secreted because you need some other things there. But then you go, okay, I think it's time to add, you know, just to eat a 12-hour normal. And that usually recalibrates the body, and then you start to feel the benefits again. There's some of my clients, actually, I encourage that to actually eat, open up your window of eating, you know, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., just eat. Doesn't mean you're like shoving your face full. It means you can just eat. Don't worry about it. And then the next day is usually when they'll have some weight loss. Or the next day. So it's very interesting. So the same thing over and over is the same thing over and over. It's the old adage, you know, same old is same and old. So you got to change it. Same old is same and old. So very, very, very.
So, I kind of did intermittent fasting a little bit, but probably not correctly because I still coffee. But I found that I no longer any interest in having breakfast. So now the time that I generally feel hungry and want to eat is 10:30 or 11 a.m. and that's become my pattern now. So is there anything wrong with that becoming your set
Pattern? No. No.
Can you repeat that?
She asked if, so she has been, she got in a routine of intermittent fasting, and now it's not that she's even thinking about it, but rather it is just when her hunger starts. So she wasn't eating in the morning, and now it just is natural that she's not hungry until 10:30, when it sounds like you used to open up your eating window or started eating. So that's very natural and very common. And let me preface some of this. The research that I'm looking at is just research. You got to look at you individually, what's right for you. Also, postmenopausal women are intermittent fasting is actually very, very, very good for you. It draws upon the abdominal fat, the visceral fat that is around the organs, and some of the subcutaneous, but that's where a lot of the fat is coming from in postmenopausal women, which is typically where we are also gaining that weight due to hormonal shifts. So if you can find a lifestyle that fits for you, eating at 10:30, maybe you stop at 6 o'clock, maybe you stop at 5 o'clock the next day. Maybe then you go to 7 o'clock. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't mean you have to do the same exact thing over and over. It means varying it by an hour. Challenge yourself not to eat at 8 o'clock at night. Stop. Because actually all you're doing is stimulating insulin at night to take care of the food that you just ate. And if you have insulin in your body, what do? You shut down the ability to use fat as an energy source. It's going to be my mantra. I'm going to be going, shut
What
down.
does insulin do?
Yeah, but that's important. So eating late at night, it's not, oh, I can't digest it. No, it means that you're shutting down. You're wasting those precious hours while you're sleeping. You could be burning up fat. No, because you wasted it because you got food in your belly, which means insulin is there. You see where I'm going with that? Varying things is a beautiful idea. It doesn't mean you have to make these huge changes postmenopausal. It means that you change it in ways. Maybe one day a week, you just challenge yourself with a 20-hour fast, whatever it is. Questions? Oh, I forgot to tell you. This is really cool. I forgot to tell you. I look like a little kid. Ketones. This was really important. Okay, so when ketones are secreted, and I wrote it down, I don't know why I said it, ketones suppress appetite. So it actually suppresses appetite. So you don't get hungry. Okay? That's important to understand. So as you intermittent fast, it just becomes natural and you aren't hungry because you're using ketones. It's amazing. We get over it, don't we? It's like, no, I'm really not hungry. Pretty cool. And it's the cascade of hormones. Questions?
How does alcohol affect fasting?
How does...
I'm starting with Bloody Marys in the morning.
I love you. She wants to know how much alcohol she can consume fasting. She actually asked, how does alcohol affect fasting? Well, like I said, you have to metabolize it. So it does stop the fast.
But does it take longer than eating food? Sorry.
No, it goes in a different pathway. So don't answer that question, please. I will. And people start going, oh, but fructose, no, it's not. It's so different. No, it's digested differently. But it's not that the alcohol itself puts on weight. It usually means you're consuming other stuff with the alcohol because your resistance is down. It can create a whole bunch of where your body can't process it quickly. So then those carbohydrates, you ever hear of fatty liver? Well, then those carbohydrates can't what do I do with it? You just start producing fat molecules, right? They're taking that glucose and making it into fat, and then it's just kind of not going anywhere. It's kind of accumulating in the liver. That's not a good thing. You can see, I have pictures on a
Can you
graph.
get alcohol outside of your fasting period?
Yes.
I mean, because vodka is a potato and wine is a grape.
Wine,
All right.
grapes, potatoes, rye.
Right.
They all come down.
Just ask
You
me.
can. No, I honestly think, no, I don't care what the alcohol thing is, but you have to think alcohol is fine. It's all about moderation. We talked about that, right? Grill. You've been shortened to grill now. Well, yeah, you got my joke.
Everything in life is moderate.
It's moderation.
Oh,
It
yeah.
really is. And I don't think alcohol, unless you have a issue, obviously.
Yeah.
Unless there's another.
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Another problem, that's another.
Yes.
seminar.
Yes, exactly. We'll do that one later on.
Questions?
Well, I was gonna say, I think we'll go ahead and
Oh,
say goodbye.
yes.
But
I
Molly,
have.
yeah, but Molly will still be here if somebody has a question, you can come up
No,
and
Molly
chat. But
won't be here.
okay,
Molly
Molly's
hasn't
leaving,
done
so we're
it.
done. No. But thank you, everyone who's online. Thank you in person, and I'll send you a follow up in a little bit. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And thank you online.
Thank you.
You're welcome.